Hey guys, remember when I made that episode recently where I said that cheap watches were not necessarily good watches? Of course you do. You were very offended by that episode. It's 11:30 a.m. Let's get down to business. That's right, guys. The other week I made an episode titled Cheap Watches Do Not Equal Good Watches, and in that episode I pretty much laid out my opinion that just because a watch is very cheap or just because it's the cheapest option out there doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best option when it comes to getting a good watch or even when it comes to bang for buck. And actually, in that very episode, I also laid out the flip side, that just because a watch has a hefty price tag does not mean it's any better. So just because you're spending big money on a watch doesn't mean that it's a good watch, and that's actually what we're going to talk about more in depth today. Now, of course, I do need to preface this. If you own any of the watches I talk about today, I'm not judging you, okay? I'm actually just judging the watches, and sometimes the watchmakers, sometimes the businesses themselves, but guys, don't take it to heart. We need to just kind of take this a little less seriously. Just because I'm kind of spouting my opinions about an inanimate object like a wristwatch, I'm not judging you as a person. So we're actually going to kick this off by talking about a watch from a watchmaker that I actually love. In fact, I own a watch from this watchmaker, and I am very swiftly falling out of love with Panerai. That's right, Panerai. Very expensive, big price tags, and not very good with what they're putting out recently, and it's kind of heartbreaking. You see, Panerai has had a lot of problems recently, specifically with counterfeiters, and it's because they seem to just not have the wherewithal to figure out what's real and what's fake. Proof positive, Panerai keeps posting pictures of counterfeit Panerai watches on their own official, verified social media. It's just crazy. I think it was twice, at least, in the last 2 months, Panerai has posted a blatantly counterfeit Panerai on their Instagram alone. And guys, you know I own a PAM 111. I absolutely love it. That was pretty much the last watch I really love from Panerai. Once they moved over to sandwich dials, it seems like the counterfeits just spiked. I don't know why. Panerai is just... they're messing up. So let's talk about why Panerai is actually putting out not great products. They seem to be having problems specifically with their various ceramic models. Now guys, it's a fact of life that ceramic as a material, very scratch resistant, but it will break if you drop it or if you hit it hard enough. But when you see it over and over again, specifically with Panerai ceramic models, are we to just assume that all the Panerai owners are just idiots with their watches, or Panerai just isn't really taking the time to make a good watch case? We're seeing it with the PAM Ceramic 384 and the 317, both of these watches hovering around $10,000, and yeah, they are shattering. So guys, I suppose we can give Panerai the benefit of the doubt and just say, oh, these are just isolated incidents, but it's not just these incidents. It's all the things together. It's Panerai not really giving an F about these counterfeit watches, posting them on their social media. That is a terrible thing to do as a business. It shows the people that you don't really care. It's the fact that you release everything as a limited edition or pseudo limited edition, so then nothing you release is actually limited at all or special. That shows us all you care about is just blatant cash grabs. And then when you factor in these stupid things like the Brooklyn Bridge edition unfinished movements and Panerai watches essentially just tanking on the secondhand market. I mean, a lot of people have invested big money in picking up these stupid pseudo limited edition Panerais, and then they find themselves sitting on them because they can't unload them. Again, all of these things together, it's just Panerai is not good anymore. So guys, I'm sorry to say it, as a Panerai owner, just because Panerai watches are pretty expensive doesn't mean they're any good. Moving on to a company I actually mentioned in another episode fairly recently. I think I mentioned it in expensive watches that look cheap, Quorum. Okay, when I mentioned Quorum, a lot of my viewers didn't even know Quorum existed, and then they were like, oh my god, what are these? Are these pogs? Looks like there's a pog that someone just put half a marble over, and then I'm like, yep, you just described the Quorum bubble. It's literally a pog with like a marble over it. In fact, a Pog with a marble is probably worth more money than an actual Quorum bubble. So guys, it does not take an expert horologist to look at the Quorum bubble watch. These watches are, you know, $4,000 and up for a very, very basic quartz. And again, non-precious metal. We're talking about stainless steel, no diamonds or anything. People get mad when I recommend a quartz watch that's over 500 bucks. So imagine a watch that looks like this, no real interest at all as far as the movement or watchmaking, over $4,000, no precious metal. What is going on? I don't understand anything about this watch. I don't know where this became desirable at all. And the interesting thing is, I've never actually seen anyone wearing one like in the wild. So do these even exist? Does anything even really exist? All right, moving on to another company. This one kind of hurts, actually, because I understand the appeal of these watches, but I think the overarching brand name that is associated with these watches is kind of taking advantage of people. So I'm just going to kind of generally say an expensive watch that is not good, or, you know, literally any Ferrari watch. Listen guys, Ferraris are sick, okay? I would love to have an F40. I think that's like the pinnacle of automotive badassery, but when you go to store.ferrari.com and you look at their watches and they're charging, you know, just under $1,000 for a really basic quartz chronograph, sure, it has the Ferrari crest on it, I guess, but I think the only thing that's cool about this watch is that it has like the start for the chronograph pusher. It's red and it kind of looks like the push to start on a Ferrari, I suppose. But again, I think people are just really interested in these watches because they're associated with a very coveted automotive manufacturer. But the limited edition Swiss-made Pilota Evo watch for around 900 bucks, very basic quartz. It's gonna be a no for me. Moving on to another really expensive watch that is not very good. Lamborghini watches. I brought up Ferrari, let's just bring in Lamborghini. Listen guys, I'm not just pulling these watches like out of my nether regions. These are watches I get questions about weekly, okay? A lot of younger watch enthusiasts ask me about the Ferrari watches. A lot of people are asking me about these Tonino Lamborghini watches, and I've looked them up and they're charging around $1,000, sometimes well over $1,000. This Tonino Lamborghini Spider X chronograph is almost 1,600 bucks, and again, a pretty basic quartz chronograph. It does have some very out there styling, but I don't understand. Or maybe I do understand. People want something associated with these very cool, again, coveted automotive manufacturers. Oh my gosh, I think I just had a stroke. But personally, I don't think this watch is attractive at all. I don't think there's anything really special about it. But again, around the 12 o'clock, it has the Lamborghini logo. So you're paying over $1,000 just for that, in my opinion. All right, the next expensive watchmaker that is not necessarily good at all. A company I love to hate, Tag Heuer. I can hear you getting upset in the comment section. But specifically, okay, I'm gonna rag on any quartz Tag Heuer because I think they're kind of having a disconnect from reality. Let's look at the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer. They're charging for a quartz one, okay? Around 1,600 bucks. And guys, this is a very basic quartz. This is not like a 7C46 or a 9F. This is not a very impressive quartz watch. 300 meter water resistance rating, stainless steel, 1,600 bucks. Is it worth it? No. Again, I think they're just fooling people. You have the Tag Heuer name, you're charging a hefty price tag, so people think they're getting this really good watch, when in reality, there's nothing impressive about it at all. Moving on to Tom Ford. That's right, I've made an episode about these Tom Ford watches. It is incredible the prices they are asking for really not impressive watches at all. I didn't even think Tom Ford would make watches, but then when you look at some other fashion companies, of course it makes sense. They're going to make a bunch of accessories to go along with their high-end clothing. But let's take a look at these Tom Ford 001s, kind of a blatant tank style watch. But again, what's interesting is for the Tom Ford 001, the bigger version, it's like this quartz tank. I think it is yellow gold, but you can just get a yellow gold Cartier tank mechanical for less money. It just blows my mind. The weird thing, and almost the perverse thing, is that when I look at these watches, I actually dig the whole rectangular watch look. I mean, I love reversos, I love tanks, I love old Hamiltons, so there's nothing offensive about a clean rectangular watch, especially these white dial variants with blue hands, but you know who does that? Cartier and Jaeger-LeCoultre. So don't buy one of these. I'm not gonna say just get a Cartier, but just definitely don't get one of these. I mean, guys, the most inexpensive one you can find is 1,600 bucks, and then they range for around 10 grand. So it's just, it's just because it's expensive, just because it's made by a high-end fashion icon like Tom Ford doesn't mean that he knows anything about watches or watchmaking. And then moving on to another, you know, really sought-after fashion company, Gucci Mane. So whereas I said that I kind of was okay with the design of the Tom Ford watches because essentially they were homages to a Cartier tank, there's just nothing I like about these watches. When you go on their jewelry section, it's a bunch of very, very expensive quartz watches. They're all pretty much exclusively well over $1,000, some of which being over $2,000. They have dive-inspired watches. They have watches that have fluted bezels, almost kind of hearkening towards a maybe Datejust, something like that. But yeah, they're all just pretty ugly. And of course, if you want that green bordered by the, the red bordered by the green stripes, and then the Gucci bumblebee there, you're going to be spending, well over $1,000 to get a very, very basic quartz watch with the Gucci name all over it. So if you really, really care about that specific brand, just be comfortable knowing you are literally only paying for the brand. And I know people are going to be like, well, with Rolex, you pay for the Rolex name. Yes, you do pay for the Rolex name, absolutely. But you're also getting a very well-made watch, so it's not mutually exclusive. Two things can be true at the same time. With these bigger brands like Rolex, like Omega, like Patek, and Vacheron, any of these very high-end companies, of course you are paying for the brand name, but you can't exclude the good watchmaking and the history and the prowess behind it. But with these other companies like Tom Ford, like Gucci, you're literally only buying the brand name with those watches. So, you know, their clothing, their handbags, whatever else they make, I don't know. They might be incredible, but you know, stay in your lane. Don't come to my town and tell me about watches, and I won't tell you about making a leather sport jacket. Okay? Wrong town. And finally, I wanted to wrap up on a company that I think is honestly the worst offender on the list. This is like the definition of expensive watches that do not necessarily equal good watches. Hublot. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, you blow your money away when you buy one of these watches. It is near impossible to sell your Hublot after you've purchased one, after you realize that you've made a terrible mistake. It's because no one actually wants a Hublot. So let's talk about this. You see, Hublot lost their credibility when they made a huge stink about their in-house movements, and I think that it was around when they introduced their Hub 4100 movement, and they were saying, oh, this is a Hublot movement. This is our movement. The only issue is that it wasn't. That's right, it wasn't in-house at all. It was actually an ETA movement. But guys, listen, I have zero issue with ETA movements. I have watches with movements that are based on ETA movements. ETA, they do their thing, man. They know what they're talking about when it comes to watchmaking. I'm not upset with ETA movements. It's the fact that Hublot cares more about the marketing side than the actual watchmaking side. Hublot cared more about saying, this is our movement, this is a Hub 4100 movement, our in-house movement. It's in-house, that's all you read about. And then it wasn't. It reminds me of something Tag Heuer did, I think it had to do with an automatic chronograph movement. I think it was their in-house automatic chronograph movement, and Seiko. Yeah, Tag Heuer did that. Yeah, they said it was their in-house automatic movement, and then it ends up it was actually just a Seiko. It's so weird. But guys, here's where I really take issue with Hublot, okay? If you charge as much as Hublot does for their watches, you'd better have something other than a very basic ETA powering your watch. So maybe spend a little bit more time and money developing an actual movement for your watches instead of developing a marketing scheme to say it's in-house when in reality, you know, it's just an ETA. You know, I've had a lot of coffee today, and I think I've been fairly reasonable in this episode, so I'm just gonna give myself a little. So, okay, it's 2020 at the time of filming, and the truth is Hublot does have some actual in-house movements, their Unico line of movements, but in my opinion, too little too late. Hublot has done so many stupid things like that ETA in-house BS that watch enthusiasts they've already written them off. I'm not trying to put words in other people's mouth, but me personally and pretty much everyone I know, we don't take Hublot seriously, and it's for things that Hublot has done. So too little too late, Hublot, you charge too much, you offer us too little, your designs are ugly, and you're just a marketing company. You're like a very, very expensive MVMT. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope the one thing you took away from this is that just because someone's spent a lot of money on their watches or their watch collection doesn't mean their watches are necessarily better than yours, okay? And it definitely doesn't mean that they are able to enjoy their watches more than yours, okay? A lot of people I look up to in the watch world, a lot of fellow watch collectors have a lot more money than I do to spend on some really badass watches, and yeah, it's inspiring. I love to look at their watches, I love to lust over their watch collection, but the truth is it doesn't make me feel any worse about the watches I own. There's also a lot of people that absolutely hate the watches that I have, and they're very vocal about it, and that's perfectly fine. Different strokes for different folks, all these different opinions. It's what makes the watch hobby itself fun. If we all liked the same things, it would be very, very boring. You know, on my Instagram recently, I posted a picture of my Alpinist next to my Rolex Explorer 2. And I said that if I was to choose one and only one, I don't think I could, because I absolutely love both of those watches. They're very, very durable and very fun to wear in a multitude of situations. They're both fairly versatile watches. And people were like, no, be honest, you'd pick the Rolex. No, you're lying, you'd pick the Rolex. Why? Why would you assume I would pick the Rolex? Because it's more expensive? I don't think so. I like watches on a watch-to-watch basis. In my opinion, the Alpinist is actually a big competitor when you look at it and comparing it to that Rolex Explorer 2. I have a ton of enjoyment, or I get a ton of enjoyment from both of those watches, and the price tags are irrelevant. That's what I'm getting at. So just because one's very expensive or much more expensive than the other doesn't make it a better watch or doesn't make it a more enjoyable watch, in my opinion. And just because something is cheaper than another watch doesn't mean it's a better buy. So let's just judge watches on a watch-to-watch basis. Let's take this a little less seriously. And just because I'm very opinionated, don't take it to heart. That's what I'm trying to say. So if I have said anything negative about a watch you happen to like, just know I'm not judging you as a person, I'm just judging the watch. So thanks guys for stopping by and checking out this episode. What is content without viewers? So I really do thank you. Thank you to my channel members for making all of this possible. The lighting, the camera lenses, the watches that I get to review, can't do it without my channel members. If you want to join the channel and get 6 pieces of content a week, plus access to the members only Discord chat. And guys, we do a live Zoom call. It's on Discord, but it's kind of like this live chat that all of us hang out every week. Then please click the join button next to the subscribe button. It's like YouTube's Patreon. It's $4.99 a month, and it is so much fun. And again, you become a certified T3 bot, and we can't do any of this without you. And the editors thank you as well. So check out all the affiliate links in the description below. Check out my personal website, www.thetimetellershop.com, and like, comment, subscribe, share this with everyone you know. I'm Jory Goodman, the Time Teller, and always remember, I didn't invent time, I just tell it.